Hello everybody, I've got a few thoughts I want to share in the hope you find them interesting, possibly even useful. But one of my great passions, in addition to the martial arts and weightlifting and writing and all the stuff you know about, is mythology. I've always really liked mythology. I was a kid, I think about 7 years old at school. We did a project on the Greek myths and I was instantly hooked. And when the project ended, I went to the school library because I wanted more of these stories, of these heroes and these beasts, right? And it stuck with me. I still have that same passion for world mythology today. I love reading about them because they're such great stories. But I think the reason they're such great stories, the reason that they've been told thousands of years after they were first told, is because we resonate with them on a human level. They tell us something about the human experience. And that's not the sole preserve of the old stories either. If you look at modern myths, modern stories, movies, comic books, all that kind of stuff, those things, the ones that are really popular, they tell us something too. We resonate with them as well. And if you look at the stories of the hero, old and new, from cultures all over the world, the one thing the heroes all have in common is that there is some suffering, loss, misfortune, humiliation, desperation. That's part of their journey. Always is, right? So, Cuchulainn starts, in Irish mythology, starts his life as a dog. Odin's got to rip out one of his own eyes to gain a drink from the fountain of wisdom in order to try and offset Ragnarok. But same in modern stories too. Look at things that are massively popular. Think of Star Wars, right? Luke Skywalker sitting there on Tatooine, feeling that he should be more than what he is. He's a fairly comfortable existence, but feels he should be more than what he is. And it's the death of his uncle and auntie that ultimately starts him on his journey. He's the guy who rights all wrongs and brings balance to the Force, right? The guy who saves the galaxy. Doesn't mean that the death of his uncle and auntie was good, but nevertheless it was part of the story, right? Same with Harry Potter. Harry Potter's parents die and he ends up living under the stairs of his abusive uncle and auntie. They're constantly telling him how useless he is and how pathetic he is. And it's not until he's liberated from that he realises his own potential for greatness. Eventually, dealing with he who shall not be named, right? Same with the superhero stories. I think the superheroes are great modern myths. The obvious thing is, most of them have a secret identity. They wear masks. So the hero appears strong and confident and perfect. But underneath, we the reader, we the viewer, we know they're just like us. With their confusion and desperation, that's the message there. The hero may look perfect, but underneath they're just like you. You could be a hero too, right? And if you look at Batman, right? So Batman becomes Batman as a result of seeing his parents killed in an alley. It does not mean that seeing his parents killed in an alley was a good thing, but it became part of the narrative, a necessary part of the narrative, for him to ultimately go on and help many more people, keep Gotham safe, right? Spider-Man's another interesting example because Spider-Man got his powers by accident, but he used them for selfish purposes. He became a professional wrestler, strong and he's agile, right? So he uses his newfound powers to make money. That's what he does. And it's not until the death of his Uncle Ben that he thinks, no, I need to use this for the betterment of everybody, to become your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, right? With great power comes great responsibility. So at this point of the year, it's the start of a new one. We're looking back on the old one. And the old one is arguably the worst one in living memory, right? We can look back and say, yeah, this has been pretty grim for the vast majority of the world. People have lost jobs, lost security, people have lost loved ones, people have become ill, there's just wide-scale suffering. We've lost the ability to do the things we love. All kinds of problems on it. So we need to work them into the narrative. If you want to be the hero of your own story, you can't change what's happened. You can't go back in time and change the past. It's happened. So what you need to do is you say, okay, that thing has happened. What can I draw from it that will ultimately lead to me achieving greater things? Not just for me, but for everyone else as well. What lessons are there here? If you've suffered, maybe, it'll make you into someone who's mean and callous and doesn't care about anyone else. But maybe it'll make you more compassionate and more determined because you'll think, I've suffered, I don't want anyone else to suffer. And anything else I can do to alleviate that suffering, you become the hero of the story. And it's also worth remembering that these stories, this suffering always happens in the once upon a time part of the story. It's not there in that and they lived happily ever after part of the story, right? So when you've had these things happen, you've got to look back at them and say, okay, this is going to lead to something much, much better. right? But how? How am I going to work it into the narrative? There's a line from Beowulf I like as well when we're talking about mythology. So Beowulf is the oldest poem written in English, right? And there's a line which also appeared in the film The 13th Warrior as well, which is based on Beowulf and Iblafahin's journeys and encounters with the Rus. But he said, fate will often save a man if his courage holds. You know, so I love that line. You know, so sometimes, you know, good things lie ahead. We've just got to hold on to our courage while we get through that bad thing, right? And when that bad thing is behind us, you know, what are we going to do with it? How are we going to make it into something great? Because that's what heroes do. You know, that's what you need to do. You need to be the hero in your own story. You can't change the past, but you can look back at it and say, okay, I'm going to use this. It will become part of the narrative. It's not where the story ends. It's the beginning. You know, it's a part that will be woven into the full story, which will ultimately end with happily ever after.